So when we talk of the ship network today, IoT has become an integral part of the ship network. Now, ship is a broad name which has been given to an amalgamation of different type of wireless networks. For example, when we talk of the S, so we talk of the smart network, which is the IoT. Now, what is the definition of the word smartness here? We say any device which has got a processing capability, which is Wi-Fi enabled, it is connected or hooked to the network. It can think on its own. It can take a logical decisions by including the artificial intelligence into it. We can make the device much more smarter than a normal dumb device. So the network which is formed by a combination of these smart devices, we say it's a smart network. And IoT is definitely one of the example of it, because here processors are fast. They nowadays we have got devices which have got thinking capability. We have seen Alexa and Siri examples done by the Apple phones. And they can help you to take some decisions. And they can make your life easier by helping you in day-to-day activities. And plus they're all network enabled. They're all Wi-Fi enabled. So any kind of the device that fits into these three broad parameters, this is a smart device. Plus it can perform multiple number of functions to make the life of a common man much more easier. Now the number and the type and the category of the function, that varies from device to device. So we can't say two device by two manufacturers may have the same function. For example, even if the smartphones we use, one by Nokia, one by Ericsson, one by Apple, even though they fall in the same budget, they will have some varying features with them. So no two device can be having the same number of the features. Something or the other will definitely vary. Then S also stands for sparse network, which we also call as a opportunistic network. Now in a smart network, the devices can be the handheld devices, what we use in the smartphones, or it could be any of the devices in the wireless network, what we call iMotes, MOTES. But in sparse network, devices may or may not be in the overlapping transmission range of each other. But in a smart network, we always make that as an assumption. The devices are going to be in the overlapping transmission range. For example, smart homes, smart offices, there the devices are in the overlapping transmission range. For example, if you take a smart home example, the various electronic gadgets and electronic appliances which we use, like televisions, now we have got smart TVs, refrigerators, air conditioners, microwave ovens, they're all smart because they are nowadays full-fledged computers in themselves. They can sense the temperatures, they can take the decision, they are pre-programmed, the chip is mounted in them. In fact, every electronic device is now a full-fledged computer in itself. But there, all the devices are in the overlapping transmission range. But in the case of sparse networks, the devices are spread across vast area. Now, those devices, we call them as sensors in IoT context. For example, if I'm setting up a network in my lab in the university, it will be in the controlled environment. But what if I want to set up a network of IoT devices, the sensors, let's say in a Jaisalmer or Barmer district of Rajasthan, because that is a task given to me for the measurement of atmospheric temperature or pressure or humidity in the real-time environment. So I have to spread my sensors across a large area. So there we say the devices may be in the overlapping transmission range or they may not be in the overlapping transmission range. So the alphabet ON here stands for opportunistic networks. Then we have got a H, which is a stand for hybrid network. Now hybrid network is again a name given to amalgamation of various other small category of wireless networks. For example, MANETs are mobile ad hoc network. Then DTN are delay tolerant network. MANETs were introduced by Charles Perkins. If when you are free at any point of time, you Google his profile. He has done a lot of work in the area of the wireless network. Then we have got DTN, delay tolerant networks. The name itself tells that this network will have the devices which can tolerate the delay. So delay tolerant network. They were introduced by Kevin Fall. He has also done a lot of work in the area of the DTN. Then BT is for Bluetooth network. WSN is for the wireless sensor networks. and IoT is for the Internet of Things. Now, IoT should not always be called Internet of Things. We can also call it intranet of things. Rather, it's a network. They just search for the network. So I should not always use internet for the transmission of the data or the messages between the devices. I can use intranet also. I can use a cloud-based services also in today's environment. So IoT, initially it was all Internet of Things, but now the alphabet I can be used in a variety of acronyms, can be used in a variety of purposes. Now I is for the intermittent connectivity. In IoT, we always believe that the devices, now the smart devices, one which are Wi-Fi enabled, will always support 24 by 7 by 365 connectivity. But there could be a situation, for example, if I'm setting a IoT network in a Rajasthan desert, then continuous connectivity may not be possible. Or let us say if I'm setting up a IoT network in the mountainous region of Uttarakhand. Now, those of you who might have gone there for Char Dham Yatra like Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri and Yamunotri, you would have seen the terrain there is very volatile because the mountains, they are very shaky. That region is very prone to earthquake. Then that region is also prone to flash floods, the landslides. So setting up a network in these terrain is really difficult job. And even if at all I go ahead and set up a network, then the connectivity between the devices may not be always there. At times it is exists, at times it does not exist. So such a kind of connectivity we called as a intermittent connectivity. Internet is an example of live connectivity, but in urban cities, yes, it is still possible. But if you go to the remote cities or tier 3 cities or villages, it is not always continuous connectivity. At times it is there, at times it is not there. So I stand for the intermittent. Then P is for planned network or the partition network. Now, planned network is one where I, as an administrator, actually plan my network in the labs. So, any kind of network which you set up, let's say in a conference hall, in a seminar hall, in an auditorium, in an amphitheater, it's a planned network where you decide on the number of devices which are going to participate, the configuration of these devices in terms of the RAM and buffer space and processors, the operating system you're going to install on these devices, then the transmission range of these devices. So everything is there in front of you. So you can plan the network ahead in advance. But in the case of partition network, it exists in the form of clusters. At times the connectivity is there between these clusters, at times it is not there. So planned network can be set up in the lab condition, but partition network is on the real-time environment. What is the real-time test beds, which it happens on the land when you're actually setting up a network in, let's say, in the Rajasthan desert region or in the mountainous region. So wherever you set up, those kind of terrain throw up the challenges on setting up a network, because you will have to take the ground realities into account, and then only you can set up a network of devices. So SHIP is a broad category of the network that amalgamates various other smaller networks depending on their parameters and characteristic features. Now this is a guy to whom the credit goes for coining the word IoT. What we call, his name is Kevin Ashton. He was a British technology pioneer who co-founded the Auto ID Center at MIT. MIT, we all know, is a world best engineering institute. And he also created a global standard system for RFID and the other sensors. Now, sensors are the backbone of the entire IoT. In fact, IoT is a game of sensors only, primarily. So, sensors, selection of sensor is very important, because if you select a sensor which is not good, which is not accurate, which does not give you the accurate data, so it's going to be a problem. So, selection of sensors is very, very important whenever you go for the IoT experiments. And he was a person who in '89 coined the term Internet of Things, and he was also nominated for the ACM Turing Award. Now, Turing Award, I hope we have heard its name. In computer science, we do not have a Nobel Prize. So what equivalent award we have got in computer science? It's the Turing Award, in the honor of the Alan Turing. And we all know the contribution of Alan Turing is immense. So in 1965, ACM is the Association of Computing Machinery. It's an international organization based in US. They started off with the award process that let's institutionalize or start up the award, the computer science. And every year it is given to a person, a group of person who have made outstanding contribution in research or in software development, wherever it is. Something unique which nobody has done in the past. So award is given to a person or a group of person. So if you count from 1965 to 2020, so 35 plus 20, 55 years have gone by. Now considering the population we have got and the number of engineers who pass out with their degrees every year in India, we must have been able to secure at least 20 plus awards in 55 years. But again, it is ironical to say that we have been able to secure only one award, the ACM Turing Award. And does anybody know the name of that person? Who that person is, so whom has been award has been given? There's only one person, so you don't have to remember many names. Anyone with a good GK or good IQ knowledge? No one. So his name is Professor Raj Reddy. And we must remember his name because he is the only person, only Indian who has been able to get this Nobel Prize, almost equivalent to Nobel Prize in computer science. And he got it in the 1994 in the field of the artificial intelligence. So that is one and the only award which India has been able to get in the field of computer science. Now, how do we define the term Internet of Things? So we say it's a network of physical objects. So what is that things here? It's a collection or a network of physical objects, the devices, vehicles. Now vehicles also, you see there is a lot of improvement in the vehicles. For example, I remember when I was in my college days, my father had a Fiat car, and I started, my first car was a Fiat car. I started learning driving on the same car. Now, if I compare that car, which I sold off in 2007 when there were no more spare parts available in the market. If I compare that car with today's car, there's a huge difference. In fact, today's car is itself computer in itself, complete. It can take so many decisions. They're all Bluetooth enabled, so now you can have the hands free and you can talk to somebody on the phones. They're all speakers are there on the steering itself. You can control the volume of the speakers. Then smart chips are there. In fact, the entire engine is a collection of so many number of small chips only, which are pre-programmed for a specific task. So vehicles today, air conditioners with so many number of lights inside them, so many number of functions, and depending on the budget you have got, you can have that many good vehicle. So cars, so much revolution has taken place, and nowadays we have got the battery driven, the e-cars, what we call the, even Delhi government is giving subsidy for it, though the cars are a bit costly. So they are battery driven, they are petrol driven, they are diesel driven, they are CNG based. So much amount of the revolution has taken place in designing of the vehicles. Then gadgets and the other items which are all embedded with the electronics, software, sensors, and network connectivity. So these four things are the most important when we talk of the Internet of Things. The electronic appliances, and when we talk of the electronics, if you look, the real hardware hub of the world is in China, Mongolia, Korea, Philippines, and Japan. So the entire almost 90% of the production of the electronic items around the world gets done in these countries only. So when we talk of the electronics appliances, the sensors making, even Taiwan for that matter, they have got multiple number of foundries and the chip companies. Just like in India, we have got software companies in Noida, Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, Okhla, so many number of the in Calcutta, they have become software hubs of the world. Same way, there is a hardware hub of the world where almost everything gets done. So whether you purchase a smartphone from Samsung or Nokia or Apple, actually they get built, manufactured in these countries only, and then they are embossed with the brands. So almost majority of the production gets done in there only. And the network connectivity. So when we talk of the Internet of Things, we are talking of the collection or a network of multiple number of devices which can connect to each other, which can collect the data, and which can exchange the data with each other. Now, what do you do with that data? Because once the sensors have sensed the data, they have captured the data, then comes the next task. do the analysis of the data. So IoT believes only in capturing of the data and the transmission of the data. What we say routing of the messages in terms of when we talk of the nomenclature of networks, we say IoT will have a collection of sensors. So selection of sensors is going to be very important. So precision, accuracy, configuration is very important when you go for the sensors. And if you look at the cost of the sensor, it varies from 200 rupees to almost 20,000 of rupees. So that depends upon your application and how much budget you have to purchase the sensors, because single sensor will not do a job. So if I'm working on an IoT project or IoT experiment, I require multiple sensors, maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 500, 1000. More sensors you have got, better results you can obtain from your IoT experiment or IoT project. So ultimately it boils down to your budget, how much money you have got to spend on your IoT project. So it starts from 200 rupees, maybe cheaper than that also, and then goes right up to 20 or 25,000 of rupees. So selection of sensors is very, very important. And there are certain companies in Delhi and Bangalore who specialize in this sensor business only. And then definitely their sensor cost a lot, because if you take a sensor of a good company, like one of the good companies, Texas Instrument, TI. If you Google it, you will come to they are into this business. They are based in Bangalore, Texas Instrument TI, and they are purely into sensor business. The kind and the precision and the quality of the sensors they build, it's very good. Then there is another company called SenseNuts in Delhi. They are also into sensor business. They also manufacture very good quality sensor as such. So, and there are many, many more companies. These are just two examples which I have taken, but there are many, many more companies which are totally into the business of the sensors. So, selection of sensor for doing a experiment in IoT plays a very important role. And once the sensors have sensed the data, then thereafter you can have your data warehousing and data mining algorithms to analyze that particular data. Or you can apply the data science algorithms. We have got supervised and the non-supervised learning algorithms to analyze that data which you have captured with the help of the sensors. So you can have the support vector machines, clustering, k-means, any kind of the data science algorithm you can apply for analysis of the particular data. That what is the kind of data, collection of data has to be done. What you do with that data? Because once you have captured the data with the help of sensors, then what do you do with the data? That is the next big thing, because IoT will not help you in that. That is something you have to decide, that what do I do with the data. Sensors will go and help you to capture the data. And if you don't purchase the good quality sensors, then sensors may give you erratic data. The data which is itself a flawed, which has got multiple number of failures inside, multiple number errors are there inside it. So what do we do? What analysis you will do with the wrong data? So selection of sensors is a very important thing that I always say in any IoT experiment. Always spend good quality of money in buying a good sensor, because ultimately thereafter all the analysis of the data has to be done. So you cannot do the analysis of the wrong data or wrongly captured data or the data which is error prone. So we cannot do it because we won't be able to get good results. So a good amount of money have to be spent in the buying of the sensors. So when we talk of the IoT, we say characteristic features, they are comprised of smart devices. They encapsulate the sensors and actuators. Sensors, the name itself tells, they will sense the data. Actuators, we'll just discuss what the role of the actuators is. They usually connected network with a live connectivity. We always believe that we will try to have the live connectivity. It may be possible in certain situations. It may not be possible in certain situations. So that depends upon the kind of the IoT experiment and where you are actually deploying the sensor nodes. Now the nodes may be mobile, or a network may comprise of the stationary and the mobile nodes. Now that depends upon your particular IoT experiment. For example, in social network, we always believe the node mobility will be there. Why? Because as a human being, I am continuously on the move. So I am a carrier for my handheld device, which is a smartphone. So as I am moving, so is my phone moving. So when we talk of the social networks, we say mobility is by default induced in the social network. because I'm a social carrier. I'm a carrier of my mobile phone. So either I may be static or I may be moving. So when I'm moving, my coordinates will be trapped. What are my latitude and longitude? Lat and the long coordinates will be trapped. So social network is very mobile driven, whereas you may stay for the entire day in the homes. For example, in the lockdown, we have seen almost everyone was confined to the four walls of the house. So nobody was moving around. So the entire nodes, all they were stationary within the four walls as such. Or you may be driving on a highway and the entire mobility, because you may crisscross many number of cell sites, the cell towers. That is what cellular telephony tells us. So using handoff mechanism, you are continuously on the road, continuously on the move. So your device is also continuously moving. So just like we got a MANET, mobile ad hoc network, which is for the conference hall or symposiums or seminars, we have got VANET, vehicular ad hoc networks. It is primarily meant for connecting the networks of devices which are on the road, which are continuously on the moving. How to carry out the routing of the messages or the transmission of the data between the vehicles which are moving on the roads. So for that we have got VANETs, vehicular ad hoc networks. And the data can be exchanged through web services, just like what we call internet, or it could be both cloud and the non-cloud based services. Now today there are many options for the data exchange, which was not the case earlier. Earlier cloud was more theoretical in nature, but nowadays many companies have spending huge amount of money into building the cloud infrastructure. Like the Google Cloud Platform is there, Amazon Web Services, AWS is there, IBM Cloud is there. So these companies have spent a lot of money into the cloud infrastructure business. In India, we all would have heard the name of the NIC, National Informatics Centers. It's a government of India's company under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. They have also built up their own cloud. We call them Meghraj, Meghraj. Meg, we all know it's a cloud. So it's a Meghraj cloud. It's a homegrown cloud, indigenously cloud built in India only by the NIC. So nowadays, a lot of companies are spending a lot, billions of dollars into the cloud-based business. And in the times to come, we'll see almost everything completely getting shifted to the cloud only. So what are the factors that contribute to the rise of the IoT? We say it's a processing speed, because nowadays devices are continuously getting much more smarter. Processing speed is increasing a lot, which was not the case 5 or 10 years back. Operating system, tiny OS is widely used. Lightweight operating systems are there, which consumes less amount of the buffer space, which was not the case earlier. Then they're all Wi-Fi enabled, so wireless communication has come up in a big way. Cloud computing has got integrated with the IoT, and we've got something called CPS, the cyber physical systems, which is a combination of both the IoT and the cloud computing. Then small footprint protocols, like we have got the MQTT and COAP, message queuing telemetry transport, MQTT, and COAP is for the constraint application protocol. And plus the research work. Research work is something which will go on. There is no end to when the research will stop. And another work which is getting a lot of importance in the IoT is, beside these factors which have been written in this slide, it's the green computing. Means how to make the devices much more energy efficient or energy conscious. For example, we see our smartphones, and one of the biggest problem with the smartphones and any kind of the wireless device for that matter is the battery issue, because battery keeps on draining. So what we normally do, we keep on always carrying the either the wherever we look out for the power plug, we keep on plugging our device to get it charged. So whether we go from the home to the college or college back to the home or to the friend's place, we are always interested in carrying out the charging of the phone. Or maybe we carry a power bank, and even if we are sitting in a metro or in a car, we keep on charging our phone. One of the biggest problem here is the energy of the phone. How to make sure that the devices are power driven continuously. So we say the word is green computing. So a lot of researchers around the world are investing a lot of money, time, and energy into building a devices which can charge on its own. Just like, for example, you would have seen we have got solar powered calculators where solar powered chip is there. Why can't we have a solar powered smartphones? so that we are not dependent on these continuous charging of the mobile phones. And we all know mobile phone hardly lasts beyond 2 or 3 years, because then the mobile phone will require software and the hardware upgrade. And even if you don't want to go for upgrade, you are happy with your phone, then the support from the company will stop. And sooner or later you will have to upgrade your phone. You will have to dump your previous phone and buy a new phone. So not any phone lasts beyond 3 years. And just like we say also, any laptops or any machines nowadays don't last beyond 5 years. So it's something like a continuous process. You keep on spending the money on these electronic gadgets and appliances after every 3 to 5 years. And even if you're not, if you even if you don't want to upgrade, and you just want, you still, you to make that device practically possible and feasible, these companies will force you to go for software and hardware upgrades. Let's say moving from the one operating system to another operating system, or maybe at the even sometime your device may not function, you take it to the hardware vendor, he will say your motherboard does not support any more hardware upgrades, so we'll have to dump the previous one and buy a new product. So it's something like a continuous basis ongoing process going on. But a lot of work is being done today nowadays for having this green computing enabled wireless network nodes, which can charge on its own, and you don't have to plug in and plug it out every time you want to use it. Now IoT is basically the end product of the wireless networks. So we must have a knowledge of the wireless network before we can go full on and for the IoT as such. So let us take this small example where a short range wireless network, and we need to transmit the message from one node to another node. Now here if you look at the footer of the slide, we say node A has a message for the node D. Now which can be delivered using the path A to B to C to D without any substantial delay, because that's what the primary requirement is. Delay should not be there. Instantly the message should be delivered. Now what are the options here? First option is device A tries to discover the path with the help of these intermediate nodes, how to reach out to the node D, because these are all wireless networks. So that is why dashed border indicate. If there is a firm line, that means wired network. If there is a dashed line, this means wireless network. Because wireless network, now again this is a point to remember. When we say wireless, it means usage of less number of wires. It does not mean no wire networks. So wires are always going to be there. And always take this as a point of understanding in the networks, that our good old wired networks or the wireline networks, for which the nomenclature is IEEE 802.3, popularly called as Ethernet, they are the best networks. We go for wireless network only because user wants it. The end user is mobile and he is demanding that please provide me with the network which is a collection of devices which are wireless in nature. So last mile connectivity, what we call LMCs, it's only wireless. Otherwise the backbone network is all wired network, and there are various reasons for it. Primarily we call SRS, not the software requirement specification which software engineering teaches us, but primarily speed and range and security. They are much more in the wired network as compared in the wireless network. So one of the biggest problems of the wireless networks are speed, the data transmission speed. In the wired network you can go on from kbps to gigabit, gbps to tbps, terabits, pentabits. There is no end to it. But in the case of wireless network, maximum speed is from the kbps to mbps. And nowadays some Chinese products have come which provide up to gbps, but not beyond that. Even gbps are very few devices are there. So one of the biggest problems is the speed. Then the range. In the case of the wireless network, the range hardly goes from 10 meter to 100 meters, not beyond that. Then you require another device which can come into its vicinity and the message can be exchanged. So range is another problem with the nodes of the wireless network, which is not a problem in the case of the wired network. In the wired network, we have got transmission media. Like we have got twisted pair cables are there, which you would have seen in the labs of the college, the shielded and unshielded twisted pair cables. We have got coaxial cables, which I have seen in your television sets, a thick black colored cable is there. Then we have got fiber optic cables. So transmission of the data acquire phenomenal speed and very high range when you are using a wire as compared to the wireless. And the last biggest problem with the wireless network is the security, because here the transmission of the data is over the air, and when the data is being transmitted through the air, then we require a strong encryption and a strong decryption to encrypt and decrypt the data. Otherwise anybody can overhear our talks and he can capture our data. Just like you remember in the networks, we have got a problem of interference and crosstalk. You would have also seen around a few years back, whenever you want to dial somebody's number, you could overhear somebody else talking on the phone. So that was one of the biggest problem with the case of the wireless interference and the crosstalk phenomenon. So security, range, and the speed, SRS what we say, is one of the biggest drawbacks of the wireless network, together with the battery issues. That's one of the other problem. Everyone has to keep on charging their phones or any other wireless network devices. So coming back to the slide, this is such a small example. Only 4 devices are there. Now what the device A has to do? It has to discover the path from A to D. Now mobile ad hoc networks or MANETs offers a routing protocol, because when we say message has to be delivered, that means routing has to be done. Routing means movement or the transfer of the message from one node to another node in a network. That is what simple meaning of the routing is. And we must always follow certain protocols to do a routing on the network. So mobile ad hoc network or the MANET said that we can have two broad categories of the protocol. One is a proactive and the other is a reactive. Proactive, the word itself says you know the topology well in advance, because that's why you can go for proactive approach. Whereas reactive says we'll discover the path on the fly basis. When the need will arise, we'll discover the path. So in a wired network, if you remember, we have got different topologies: bus topology, star topology, ring topology, mesh topology. In the wireless network, we don't have any topology. Here, the devices are free. They can move around anywhere, any point. They are not bounded by topologies. They are free to move anywhere, any point of time. So in the proactive category, we have got a protocol like DSDV, Destination Sequenced Distance Vector Routing Protocol. Whereas reactive protocol offers us a protocol like AODV, Ad Hoc On-Demand Distance Vector Routing Protocol. So if I'm using a DSDV1 or the AODV, then what will the device A do? It will generate a route request message, what we call RREQ. It will go from A to B, from B to C, from C to D. And then the device D will say, okay, here I am. This was a message meant for me. I acknowledge the delivery of the message, and the message should not be routed any further, because there is no point in flooding the network with so many number of the messages. So what will the device do? Device do will reply back by sending a route reply packet, what we call RREP, route reply packet. RREQ is a route request packet or route request message. The packet will be routed in the reverse path from the D to C, C to B, and back forth from the B to A. So in this way, the message delivery gets done successfully from the device A to the device D. Alternatively, what the second approach is, either A moves closer to D or D moves closer to A, and the message transmission can happen. So here we have seen the A and D are now in the overlapping transmission range. And now they can easily exchange the data. A can send it to D and D can send it to A. So in this way, the message delivery successfully gets done. When we are, we extend the example, and here we say network is broken down into clusters. So here we have got 4 clusters. Cluster first, we have got nodes B and C in the overlapping transmission range. Then we got second cluster having only isolated node A. Then we got third cluster having the 2 nodes D and E in the overlapping transmission range. And then we have got a fourth cluster where node F is standalone or isolated node. So here the network is broken down into parts, or what we say partitioned network, where now communication between this is also a challenge because clusters are apart from each other. There is a more like a no man's land space between the clusters. And here in this scenario, if the node B has a message for the node D, which cannot be delivered in the current scenario using the routing scheme for the MANETs, the mobile ad hoc networks. Because mobile ad hoc network we have discussed, we have got two categories of the protocol, proactive and the reactive. Proactive, where entire topology is known to you in advance, and the DSDV is widely used, destination sequence distance vector routing protocol. And the other one, the dynamic protocol, which is the AODV, ad hoc on demand distance vector routing protocol. So we cannot use these routing protocol in such a scenario where the network is broken down into form of small clusters. So if I'm setting a IoT network in, let's say, in a mountainous region, this could be the real-time example where continuous connectivity may not be there between the nodes of the clusters. The clusters are spaced out, they are apart from each other. So routing of the messages can be a big challenge in such a scenario. Now message at node B will suffer a delay and node B will have to wait for the opportunity to forward the message. So node B is continuously buffering a message. Though TTL is increasing, but it is continuously buffering because it is waiting for some intermediate node to come to its rescue so that it can forward the message to the node D. And A is a good node. It moves around. It comes in the overlapping transmission range of node B, and now node B will capitalize on this opportunity, will exploit this opportunity. So now the node B will forward the message to the node A with the hope that the node A will forward it to the node D. So node A comes as an opportunity for the node B, and it is exploited or capitalized by the node B for message forwarding. Now there's also security issues in the wireless network where we say that it may happen that the nodes in my vicinity, my neighborhood nodes, may be selfish nodes, means they may be malicious nodes, and they may start dropping the message. They may not forward the message to the node D. So node A is something which has been captured by the hacker, professional hacker, and it is being remote controlled by somebody else. So node A will say, I can forward the message to the node D. So it receives the message from the node B, but actually does not do that. So here we say node A is a malicious in nature or selfish in nature. It receives the messages, but it does not forward it to the node D. So there are many attacks. Also, security is one of the biggest problem in the case of the wireless network. So we've got a wormhole attack, the black hole attack, the gray hole attack, the collaborative attack. Various attacks also exist in the case of the wireless network. But assuming that the node is good node, it is not a selfish node, it is not a malicious node. So what does the node A do? It forwards the message on behalf of the node B to the node D. So after some time, due to mobility, the node A moves around. It moves out of the transmission range of B and it moves within close to the node D in such a that both A and D are in the overlapping transmission range of each other. Now, what could be the transmission range of any device in the network? It could be 4 meter, it could be 8 meters, it could be 12 meters, 20 meters, 60 meters. So that depends upon the configuration of the particular device which is participating in the wireless network. So whenever you purchase any device, you will always see on the box. Beside the box price, you will also see the configuration of that particular device. What is a buffer space? What is the processor, the Intel processor it is using or the AMD processor it is using, what is the buffer space, the RAM space and the hard disk space, the flash memory, what is the transmission range. So everything is pre-configured by the manufacturer. So there are many manufacturers around the world like Samsung, Philips, Motorola, Ericsson. Those are into the hardware business. So they are actually the manufacturer of these devices, and every device depending is comes with a pre-configured requirements. So depending on your budget, depending on your money you have spent in, you can directly purchase one of those wireless network nodes, what we call iMOTES, MOTES, and then deploy them as a part of the wireless network. So node A is a good node. It forwards the messages and the messages which B were having destined for D have now been received by D by the cooperation of the node A. So node A will do the job, but then definitely some delay is going to happen in this task. So when we talk of the IoT is not always the uh, case of overlapping transmission range of the nodes. Depending on the real-time deployment on the land, you can always design a network in the lab condition, because you have got a room, you can design the network easily and slowly. All the nodes are in the overlapping transmission range. So routing in a lab in an IoT network is not a challenge at all. But when you actually carry out a deployment of the IoT network, let's say in a desert region of Rajasthan, where you got a huge land and you have to deploy hundred and thousand of sensors. For example, you have been given a task to measure the atmospheric temperature or pressure or soil conditions of that particular area. So hundreds and thousands of sensors need to be deployed. Or the other example, what we took, for example, if I want to set up an IoT network in a mountainous region, like we took the example of Uttarakhand, where the mountain terrain is so volatile that you can't, it is difficult to set up a network. It is very easy to set up a network on a flat condition, on a flat land, but difficult to set up a network in a mountainous terrain, because the geographical topology is so dynamic. And mountain, you have to dig up the holes, mount the sensors, deploy the sensor, and you also want to make sure the sensors don't drift away. For example, we have seen the burst of the glaciers in the Uttarakhand region of the Himalayas. So many problems arise in the mountainous region when you want to set up a network there. Or suppose if you want to set up a network on the ocean seabeds or on the river seabeds for the monitoring the flora and the fauna conditions there, because we have seen the our human activity has resulted in a lot of problem for the aquatic life, for the fishes on the ocean seabeds, because we are continuing so many plastic mound is there, and we have not been able to find a proper solution for disposable of the plastics. So all these plastics are slowly reaching up to the oceans, and the aquatic life of the ocean is badly affected by the so much usage of the plastics. And not only plastic, if you would have seen in the last 1 year or so, when the pandemic struck around the world from last March onwards, March 2020 until now July 2021, to save our own self, we have used hundreds and thousands of masks and many kind of masks. And some of them are disposable, used only for 1 day. And we have used so many number of sanitizer bottles. And there has been no disposable, no proper procedure how to dispose them of. We just throw them in the bins. And ultimately, what will happen? All these masks, all these water bottles, all these gloves will go and reach to the ocean seabed, because the companies are minting money. They almost every sanitizer company or every company who's into the mask business, they have earned millions of dollars in the last 1 or 2, because we all have been using it. So as a mankind, we have really done a huge damage to the nature, no doubt about that. To save our own self, we have so much create so many number of hundreds and thousands of masks are daily being used, so many of sanitizer bottles are being dumped, and so much amount of the hospital waste has got generated, because we have seen in the month of April and May so many people have suffered COVID. Even I was one of them. We got hospitalized. I also got hospitalized for a week. So much amount of surgical operations are done. Hospitals, they are using so many number of gloves, medicines, injection bottles. So thousands and thousands of kilograms of hospital waste has got generated due to COVID only in the last 1.5 year almost. And there has been no proper disposal for it. So ultimately, where they will all go? They will be dumped on the soil. And those of you who are living in Delhi would have seen the condition of the Ghazipur and the Rohini, where we have got dumping grounds. So much mountain has actually come up of the garbage only. So either you dump them on the soil, that's one of the way, or you throw them in the water. So that's the only two way how you can dispose of the things. And if you leave them on the soil, you do. We have seen the condition of the garbage dumps at Ghazipur and Rohini. It's almost threat to the human existence. So many diseases are going to be caused by them. Or you throw them in the water, and slowly through the drains and through the seas and the rivers, they will finally reach to the ocean seabed. So let us say if I'm carrying out an IoT experiment for monitoring the conditions of the flora and fauna for the animal and the plant species on the ocean sea bed. So that is my aim of the experiment. So I will set up a huge deployment of the sensors on the ocean sea beds. So that is also the hostile environment, because controlled environment is in the lab conditions, lab of the college or lab of the companies. But in the real-time deployment, it is always going to be a big challenge for the safeguard of the security of the sensors, for the safeguarding of the sensors, because nobody should steal the sensor. First of all, there could be theft. People just take off your sensor, or the sensor suffers erosion. There's also wear and tear, and they have to be replaced after every 24 or 36 hours. So you also have to monitor the health of the sensor. It should not happen that you have deployed the sensor once and then you leave it that it will do the job. It won't happen that way. We have to continuously monitor the condition, the health of the sensor. Moment we see wear and tear, or moment we see that the data being captured by that is not accurate, and there is a discrepancy in the data being captured by one sensors and 9 other sensors. So we'll immediately come to know that this is one of the sensor which has gone completely, has bear the brunt, has come wear and tear, it has suffered, and now it has to be dumped off. It has to be replaced by another sensor as such. So how are the things now, and how the IoT is going ahead in a big way? Either we say you take the help of the intermediate nodes for the transmission of the messages. For example, here we see one cluster is B and C, and they are in the overlapping transmission range. Then we have got B, A, and D, they are in the overlapping transmission range. Then D and E is in the overlapping transmission range. E and F is in the overlapping transmission. So either we take the help of these intermediate nodes to transmit the message from one device to another device, or we take the help of these cloud-based web services, because you can directly transmit the data, you can upload the data to the cloud, and through the cloud the data migration will be done, and it can be received or forwarded to the destination device. So IoT provides us the two protocols, the routing protocols, what we call MQTT or COAP. MQTT is a message queuing telemetry transport, or we also call it the mosquito protocol, and COAP is a constraint application protocol. So they are the two most widely used routing protocol for the IoT. So IoT networks use this protocol for the delivery of the
Sir,
message, for
please
forwarding of the
repeat the full
message.
forms.
Okay.
Repeat the full
MQTT is
forms.
message queuing telemetry transport. Don't worry, we'll discuss this MQTT protocol in a big way in subsequent lectures. So why it is used, what is the purpose, how to do simulation of it. So we'll discuss message queuing telemetry transport, MQTT. Also, since its spelling is very closer to the mosquito, so we also call it the mosquito protocol. And the other is a COAP, constraint application protocol. So these are the two most popular. There are other protocols also in IoT, but these are the two most popular routing protocols used for the transmission of the messages. And when we bring IoT and cloud together, so a new system that emerges is a cyber physical system. So CPS or cyber physical system is a combination of both IoT and the cloud computing. When we talk about CPS, cyber here means cloud, physical means IoT. Physical means sensor actually, hardware device. So cyber refers to cloud, physical refers to the actual sensors or hardware device, and systems is a general word for a combination of many things under a single platform. So CPS or cyber physical system is a combination of both of them. So in the next few years, a lot of work is being going to getting done in the research, in the academia, as well as in the corporate level, in the terms of the cyber physical system or the CPS. And combining everything we put together, we call it as a SHIP network, the SHIP network. So in the next 10 years, a lot of work is going to be expected to be done in these categories only, the IoT, in the cloud computing. And when we also talk of security of the message, now since here all the messages are being transmitted over the air, what we call OTA transmission is getting done. So we can also bring blockchain technology here for the security of the message. So those of you who might have worked in the blockchain uses the hashing technique. So there are predefined algorithm like MD5 is their message digest 5. We've got SHA SHA series of algorithm, SHA secure hash algorithm. So blockchain technology uses the hashing techniques for the safeguarding of the message. So I can also bring blockchain here, which can work with the IoT for the security of the messages, because messages are being transmitted over the air in the wireless network, and I need, as a professional, as an administrator of the network, I need to ensure the security of the message using the encryption and decryption. So either I use the traditional cryptographic techniques you would have studied in your graduation also, like Caesar cipher, Wiener cipher, rail fence cipher, affine cipher, hill climbing cipher, or you can use the algorithms, like we got symmetric and the asymmetric cryptographic algorithm. Symmetric, like DES is there, data encryption standard, AES is the advanced encryption standard, or you can use the asymmetric algorithms, like we use the RSA, Rivest Shamir Edelman algorithm, or you can use the any other kind of, even once you have used the RSA, nothing else is left, to be as simple as that. So we can use a symmetric or asymmetric cryptographic algorithm for the security of the data. So within the cyber physical system, what I can also do, I can bring the cryptographic techniques and algorithms, or I can bring the blockchain technology for the security of the message, which uses the hashing technique as such. So in the times to come, what companies are going for is that they are spending a lot of money. They're spending a lot of, and we are not talking of the Indian companies here, because Indian companies are always in crunch of funds. That's for sure. But abroad, like Google is there. There's something called Maggie group of companies, MAGGI, Microsoft, Adobe, Amazon, Google, and IBM, MAGI, Microsoft, Adobe, Amazon, Google, and IBM. Now, if you look at the turnover of these companies, the profit of these companies per year basis, it will almost be equivalent to a GDP of 100 countries. Nothing less than that. Because these companies have earned millions of dollars by providing the products and the projects and the services to the customers. So the kind of money they make, and since these companies are rich, that's why they're able to spend so much on the cloud business. That's why they're able to spend so much of the infrastructure. But Indian companies, by and large, they suffer a lot of funds crunch. That's why they are not able to spend that much into this IT industry as such. But this broad company, the US and the European based companies, since they have invested a lot of money initially, and now they are getting a good amount of the returns on their products, on the investment, that's why they are able to spend in future also in this cloud computing business, in the IoT, in the blockchain, in the big data. Because in big data also you require a good amount of database service, like Hadoop is there, MongoDB is there. So all this deployment requires good servers, a very high capability, high configuration servers. That bears again a huge cost. It's very difficult to be afforded by the Indian companies. Now, what today are the application of IoT? Almost everywhere, right from the smart mobility to the smart grids. Smart grid here means the power grids. Like we have got right from the power generation, we have got transmission and distributions. Then we have got the grids where the power is being archived and then transmitted through the wires to the colonies, to the cities. Then we have got smart homes, buildings. Nowadays, if you see the societies which have come up in Gurgaon and Noida and any other, they are much more smarter. They've got the smart homes, what we say, all the devices they use there within the smart home, they are all Wi-Fi enabled. Processing capability is very good. Air conditioners, we have got, even there are solar powered systems are there in these societies, because so that they can use less power from the municipal corporations and use more, trap the solar power and then use it for providing it to the homes. Then public safety and environment monitoring is being done in the IoT. Medical and healthcare, we have seen almost all the hospitals today, clinic, nursing homes, they are using the devices, the IoT enabled devices for carrying out surgical operations, like in the field of orthopedic, in the field of pediatrics. So many new devices have come up in the industrial process. Many factories and industries are using the IoT products. Agriculture has also been benefited in a big way. One of the common popular example which I can share is, let's say nowadays very hot in northern part of the India, and the soil continuously requires the irrigation. So we can have the water sprinklers which are fitted with the sensors, and moment they come to know that the temperature has reached beyond a threshold value, so without any human intervention, the sprinkler will get switched on and they will start irrigating the water field. So agriculture has also get benefited a lot with the help of the sensors and the IoT products. then independent living, smart mobility. Well, means there are so many sectors which have got benefited by the applications of the IoT. This is also continuation of the same slide. We can have the IoT application of smart cities like traffic management. Uh, we have all seen here in the Delhi as well as in the other parts of the India, the traffic police is using a smart devices just to make sure challans are the automatic challans are there, and your immediately your number plates is being sensed by the sensors. Even though we have got cameras fitted on the roads which keep a sense of your speed of your vehicle, and moment you cross beyond a threshold value, immediately a snapshot is captured of your vehicle and it is sent to your smartphones, so that you can see that this is you who committed that particular traffic light violation or the fraud which was committed by you, and now you have to pay the challan for that. So traffic is now being managed with the devices. Air quality control is being managed. Public safety solutions, smart parking. We have also seen now the FASTag. Around a day or two, there was a news wherein now initially the smart tag was used on the national and the state highways for paying the toll taxes. But now DMRC, Delhi Metro Rail Corporation, is also using it for the parking of the vehicles in the metro station. So smart parking is also getting benefited by smart lighting, wherein automatically sensors are fit on the smart poles, which sense that when to switch off the light, when to switch on the light. So when the morning, the dawn time is there, immediately they will power off the light. And again, when the evening comes, when again the sunlight grows, it reduces, and they immediately switch on the light. So no dependencies are there on the human beings that they have to manually go switch on and switch off the devices as such. Then we have smart waste collection in the garbage bins, or we have got sensors. The sensors, the municipal corporation keep on checking that what is the level of the garbage in a particular. Then we use the word dhalaud here. They are referred to the big disposal sizes where the garbage gets collected on the per colony basis. So they keep on monitoring the values right from the remote control rooms and the moment the sensors alerts that this much amount of the garbage, let's say 10,000 kilograms of the garbage has got accumulated. Now it is the time to move it to garbage disposal site. So now that every site is getting cubed with the sensors which can help in sensing the data. And then the next big question comes, what do you do with the data? Because once the data has been captured by your sensors, then what is the application of the data? That is something which whenever you start with the IoT experiment, it should be clear in my mind that the data is going to come to me, kilobytes or megabytes or terabytes of data. What do I do with the data? What kind of algorithms I need to apply for the analysis of the captured data? So that is again a question mark which have to be answered when you start with any of the IoT experiment. Otherwise, the data will all be useless for you. So first of all, you would have to store the data from database servers like Oracle or DB2 or Informix or Ingres, any kind of database server you can take to archive the data first, and then you run the algorithms to analyze that particular data. For example, data science, we always say a treatment of null values. There could be a situation when you require the cleaning of the data first. So data could be a combination of multiple junk values also. So do a proper cleaning of the data before you start analyzing the data. So IoT will give you data, but what do you do with that data ultimately depends